So here in this lecture, I will discuss about the locating place on the earth. At the first time, there is a quoting point of Aryabhat who talk about the sentence that the globe of earth stand in space and made of water, earth and the fire and is spherical and it is surrounded by all the creatures and the terrestrial as well as aquatic. What is the point of this? Means Aryabhat talk about that the spherical shape of the earth and the 5 points which is actually made the earth, that is the space, water, earth and fire, and the creatures is terrestrial and aquatic. Terrestrial means who lives on land and the aquatics means who lives on high ocean or ponds, and that is the all is actually based on the hydral animal. Okay, and in this case which is actually needed of that why map is needed, how map is located, how map is shaped, and that is the all things we discuss about that. The first things I will discuss about that why map is needed. The first point is the to know location. Assume your friend give you a suggestion or invitation party that you should come on that particular day at that days. You don't know about it. So why you will do? You just ask from your friend that what is the address and all, and you will your friend will suggest you some of the location and you will search on Google Map. That is the basic things we will do about. And navigation, for the navigation point of things, the map is needed. In ancient time we saw that there will be navigation. Not only that, whenever British came to our land India, there is a need for a map, otherwise it will not be possible to locate the particular place. You may be read on somewhere in future, you will read about also that how Vasco da Gama came to this place and how Amerigo Vespucci uh, came to America, and that's the all. Columbus think about that he reached to India, but he could not reach to this India, and he reached to America, and he gave this name to West Indies. That he thinks that he reached to the western part of the India. That is the things. The navigation point of view is map is also needed. Search new place, that is also needed for that. Whenever we use satellite imagery of that place and so much so on. And the proper implementation of the scheme for this, the geotaggings is also needed. Why geotagging? What is the meaning of the geotaggings? Nowadays you will look about the latitude and the longitude part, and you will see is the GPS map. Here the maps of the longitude, latitude, times is all included. That means assume that you are a PWD officer and you give a instruction to your fellow workers that you should go to this particular place and dig 10 or 12 tube well for the village. But assume that the your worker do two works, two tubes well, dig two tubes well, and presented as 10 tubers, and how you will check this. And that is for nowadays is the geotagging, means the GPS mapping. It is very much needed for that particular scheme. That's actually needed. That's why map is needed. Longitude, latitude is needed. And here is also some of the points of component. What is the map and its component? This is basically three types of maps. That is physical. Physical means such as here is India. I replicate this in small way so that you can better understand it. That is India, and the in northern place is Himalayas is situated here, and that southern place the earth, the ocean part, that is the Bay of Bengal, and the Arabian Sea, Arabian Sea, and that is the all part of the Indian Sea and Bay of Bengal. Okay, and that is the thing. Since mountain also, here is Western Ghat, Eastern Ghat, Vindhya range in middle part of this plateau, Chota Nagpur plateau. Here is this. So that is the things is the physical means, which is actually projected the physical features of continent or physical features of a country or state, such as river, ocean, mountain, plateau, rocks. That is actually called as physical map. And what is the meaning of the political map? Political map means the state, Indian state, such as here is UP, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal, and this. And such as assume in Bihar there are 38 districts. Okay, in UP also there is also some of the kind of districts, and that is the political aspect of map, and which is actually also included the capital also. That is the meaning of the political map. Thematic map, we know about the population, we know about the census, how census is projected, and how census is conducted every 10 years, basically every 10 years, to know about the condition of the population area, and for better focusing of the scheme and so much so on. Census is needed for that. That's why that means, such as that you think about that how the fertility rate of the particular place, how mortality rate, infant mortality rate, and infant mortality rate, or the maternal mortality rate, neonatal mortality rate. So we all know about that also, the thematic maps also, and census also the religion map. Okay, that which religion is more in that particular place also. That is the things we know about the tribal population, and that's much all know about the thematic means the theme based map. Here is also another thing is that three important component of the map. There is three important component. One is the direction, another is the symbol, and the distance. See, if you are looking about all the particular map, it is very much impossible to capture the big place into a small and flat plan. It is not possible at all. That's why we need that map scale. It is actually called the map scale. Here we do that means in printed format there is assume that 1 centimeters of the printed map is assumed to 100,000 kilometer of that particular place. So we projected all the things, and we capture the all the distance of that particular place on a small paper. That's the needed of the map scale. Is actually basically projection of the map. And the direction, direction means the fourth direction, that is the particularly a fourth direction: north, south, east, and west. There are intermediate direction also, such as northeast, such as northwest also, southeast also, and the southwest, and the upper and lowers also. But that is not is needed for the map point of view. In map point of view, the 4 cardinal direction and the cardinal points and the intermediate direction is needed, and it is much more needed in every of the map. Whenever you open your atlas, you will see that this direction and the map scale is projected in that particular place in the right corner of your map. That is the things is actually we know about. And there is also the symbol. And symbols is, you will see that whenever we map the any kind of minerals or communication system, so on, so much, so on, will projected in this in symbol. And here I will take my tabs also, so that you can better understand of that symbol. See this. This is actually that class 6 NCERT books, that railway line, broad gauge and meter gauge and railway station. That is the broad gauge. It's projected in broad gauge railway line, and that is the meter gauge line, means that is actually a fencing type structure. That is a meter gauge type, and the railway station. And the road, metal and unmetaled, that is also projected. Metals means here that two black color lines is conjected, and here is there is very light color line. And that is the all international, state and district, that is the in the way in river oil tank, that is the blue colors of the pictures of that is the bridges. Okay. And there is a mosque, church, that basically religious place, we will look up to that. And the post office, sometimes whenever we sometimes we not use the symbols, whenever we will use short form, that is the PO, post office, PTO, police stations, and we will basically uh, write about that. And settlement and graveyard, that is also projected in this way. And the tree and guards, that is the symbol we actually know about that. That is not so much necessary, but here we should know about that whenever we study about any kind of map and all. Mapping the earth. See, basically the earth is spherical, so it is very difficult to shape the spherical map on a particular flat space. That's why whenever we use, basically we use globe. In our school we will use globe, because through globe it is not so much difficult uh, to projection, because whenever we see about that particular place of the globe and the continent and sea, oceans also, it is uh, very easy to understand about that. And here is also a point of that understanding and coordinate and comparing with the chessboard, means that is the chessboard. And we know this, that the 8 of that uh, 8 in vertical and 8 is horizontal, in is 64ths of the units of here. And whenever we think about it, that there is an pawn, okay, and here it is moved from C2 to C4, and that is the actually we know about it. That's why the coordinate is much more needed. And coordinates is actually the direction point of things is actually basically a coordinate. And otherwise, without any direction we cannot know about that particular place, and so much, so on. There is also another things is that, which is actually in first time I told about that, the geotaggings. And here in this point, that the variation of the longitude, latitude, that's the actually, this is actually the imaginary line, that is the latitude point of view, and that is the imaginary. Longitude is also imaginary line, latitude is horizontal basic of line, and the parallel line basically, or it is a circle line. Okay. And that's the main of the 2 or 3 of the latitude line, that is the 0 degree, means the equator, 23.1 half degree north, and the south also it is called topic of Cancer, and in south it is called topic of Capricorn. And 16.6 point half degree north south also there, and the in polar area 90 degree north and 90 degree south. And whenever we go from equator to pole area, we'll see that the climate is changing. Climate in equator, there is a very hot and humid climate. Whenever we go to polar area, we'll see that there is a frigid condition. Why? Because in equator area, the sun rays flows through vertically. Assume this pencil is a sun, and that sun rays is vertically uh, falls on this equator area. That's why this area is a very hot and humid. And not only that, this hot and humid climate give a intense rainfall in afternoon time. That's whenever we will discuss about that climatic condition of the earth, we will discuss how the rain is falling on the equator at afternoon. But that is the things is actually happening in equator and the north and south areas. That is the topic of Capricorn also, and topic of Cancer in north area, and the topic of Capricorn in south area. And the middle part of this zone is called that tropical area, tropical. And okay, that's the actually needed. And of the latitude. And the second thing is the longitude. Longitude is basically cut the, that is also imaginary, and cut the earth as west and east hemisphere, and the latitude is cut that hemisphere is the north and south hemisphere. Okay, and the longitude represent the times is actually very much necessary whenever we think about that how time is changing and how our clocks is fixed. That is the need of the longitude. Latitude basically present the climatic condition and even the earth location also, but the longitude uh, focus on the timing change and international deadline change. Means the date is changing also. There is main two longitudinal line. One is the 0 degree of the line, that is called the Greenwich, is prime meridian, and it passes through the Greenwich, London, and that is the international standard time. Okay, the Greenwich mean time is also called the international standard time, and it was started in 1884. It is very much important for the MCQ questions. And there is also another things is that why India is also needed its own time. Yes, India is also needed own times, and that is the Indian standard time, that is the passes through Prayagraj, and its longitude is 82 degree 30 minutes. And ancient times, whenever we look about that this concept was existed or not, yes, this concept was also existed. And the one famous astronomer, the Borahmir, was stayed in Ujjaini, and Ujjaini, think about that the Madhya passes through Ujjain. Okay, that is also one thing is that 0 degree is prime meridian and 180 degree is the international deadline. This deadline, whenever you think about that, that is the longitude variation. And assume it is 180 degree deadline. Whenever you go to this place and you cross this 180 degree deadline, your date will change. Assume that you will keep a mobile phone, and whenever you cross this line, you will think that your date will change. And whenever you are come to this place, the west position, that you have need to uh, adjust your date on previous. That's the actually the concept of the international deadline. There is a, whenever you go to east, that is the plus date, and whenever you go to west, that is the minus date. So date is changed in here. There is also one thing is the time zone and how time is calculated. Earth is actually basically sphere. That's why it is assumed as 360 degree of the spherical unit, and 360 degree, and that full turn every 24 hours, means 24 hours basically one day. That's why we conclude that 50 degree per hour means 4 minutes is equal to 1 degree. And that is actually whenever we think about, and whenever we are calculate our time, we will do that. And in many of the countries such as France, Russia, they have the multiple time zone, but in India there is one time zone because it is really very difficult for communication such as railway, such as post, and such as nuclear power plant to manage all these things. That's why we use basically one time. But in the case of the Russia and France, there is a multiple of the time zone. Whenever the countries east and west direction will so much, that is really very difficult. And during the British time, we will see about that Chavagan time. Okay, we saw that this Chavagan times was existed because British are wanted to save the daylight of that particular place. That's why for Assam they introduce a Chavagan time. But whenever we got independence, for our communication or for our convenience, we scrap this Chavagan time. Now there is only one time, that is the 82 degree 30 minutes, which passes through Prayagraj. That is our Indian Standard Time. Okay, that's the one things. In next lecture, I will discuss about that how map is the time is calculated on map and so much so on. And bye.